What's up, guys? My name's Brandon and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more new iOS 18.3 features and changes. We're going to talk about surprise new Apple products that are coming next week, a major Apple security situation, the big debate about Apple's cleanup tool, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And as always, if you want to continue staying up to date with everything going on in the world of Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Okay, so first off, we did not see the iOS 18.4 beta start this week. So we did see iOS 18.3 get released to the public 2 weeks ago now. So not this week, but the previous week. And a lot of people expected to see iOS 18.4 beta 1 by now, but we have still yet to see that. However, we should see that as early as next week. And we'll talk more about that later on in this video. But something Apple did release this week that was kind of a surprise and kind of a big deal is the Invites application. So Apple Invites is the name of this application. It's currently number 1 on the App Store after being live for all week, which is pretty impressive. So this is a basically event planning and event invitation application. So if you go to the plus right here, you can add a background, the title, the date and the time, the location. You can share an album, playlist, and this works with, not just Apple users, it also works for Android users or even people on a PC. They can RSVP for your event right here. So this is a pretty cool app. I did make a whole short form video on this. If you want to see all the details about that, I will leave it down in the description below. But it's a pretty cool application, I have to say. What do you guys think about it? Are you actually going to use the Apple Invites application, or are you not going to? I know a lot of people said it's very similar to the Partiful application, which this is what Partiful looks like. This is what it looks like when you get invited to an event. You can see the guest list, the activity, all of that. So this has been around for a while. It seems like Apple was kind of copying Partiful. Not really. Partiful copied Eventbrite and other, Evite, other applications before. Partiful actually came out and said that Apple was copying them as well. Like they put it on Twitter that Apple was copying them. But what do you think about the Apple Invites application? Let me know in a comment down below. Also this week, we saw more airlines get on board with the AirTag tracking for lost baggage. So this is a feature that came out with iOS 18.2. We covered it here on the channel. So basically, if you have an AirTag in your baggage, the actual airlines can see, they can log in on their computer and see, where your luggage is as well. So that's very handy. And you can see here, it did come to these new airlines right here. Okay, so now we need to talk about this tweet right here. So this went mega viral on X recently, and it's comparing Apple's cleanup tool to the Samsung or Google's object eraser tool. So this went viral because it showed Apple Intelligence clearly lacking far behind this tool. However, most people don't realize that they are not the same thing and they are not meant to be used in the same way. And I posted a reply to this and a lot of people agreed, but also a lot of people disagreed. So, it started a whole drama over there, but I want to discuss it on video now. So basically, if you go into the edit right here and you go to cleanup, this is going to allow you to remove distractions or things in the background of images to make them disappear. So like if you take a picture with a person and there's other people walking behind you or some distraction, you can just circle that and it will erase that out of the background. However, this is not intended, as you can see, this is not intended to be used in the foreground on a subject. Let me clarify here. So cleanup technically does work on a subject, but the background would have to be entirely the same and the pixels around it would need to be the same and consistent for it to work effectively. Whereas, Samsung's, it can take objects in the background, different shadows, different lighting, different colors, and regenerate those parts of the image so it looks seamless. And that's the big difference here between cleanup and object eraser, because if you look at all of Apple's documentation, and if you look at when they introduced the feature, their main thing was getting rid of distractions, not to regenerate your face after you remove, a phone holding up. That's not how this feature was intended to be used. That's not how it's supposed to work. So like if I circle another subject here, you'll notice that it doesn't do great because it's doing a content aware fill. Yes, Apple Intelligence uses generative models, like on-device generative models, to do this. However, it's taking a more content-aware approach. It's taking more of that approach to blend the pixels around it together. It's not generating a brand new image like the object eraser tool is from Samsung. And I know a lot of you guys probably already know that, but I had to just address it because it has been a big topic of conversation online recently, which, I want to be clear as well. Samsung's implementation of this feature is far better than Apple's. Like, let me be very very clear. I'm not giving Apple a pass here. I'm not saying Apple's is great. Not at all. I'm telling you just the facts here. This is not opinion. This is just the facts. Now, my opinion is that Samsung's Object Eraser is far better. Like, will the average user want to do all the crazy stuff, regenerating faces and things like that? I don't know. Maybe, probably not. Most people will probably just want to do what Apple's does, but we're tech nerds. Like, I like Samsung's implementation of this feature better. So hopefully Apple comes out with a more advanced version of cleanup in the future. Now, we did also hear this week that iOS 18.3.1 is expected to come out within the next few weeks, which is pretty obvious. We all knew that 18.3.1 was coming, and it's very easy to predict when it's coming as well, but we did still see Mac Rumors post about this because they were seeing it in their analytics on the back end for users going to their sites using that version. Now, we also need to discuss this headline right here that says Apple ordered by UK to create global iCloud encryption backdoor, aka the UK government has lost its mind. Now, this news broke from the Washington Post, and they reported that the British government secretly demanded Apple to give them access to all encrypted user content uploaded to iCloud. And the way that the UK government wants them to do this is by creating a backdoor that allows the UK security officials to get access basically to encrypted user data worldwide, not just in the UK, anywhere in the world, which is insane. Now, we all know that this is not going to happen. Like, let's be real. Apple prides themselves, number one, on privacy and security. That is literally the number one thing that they are as a company. If they lose that, they will fail. They will not be what they are today. So I do not see any world where Apple actually, goes through with this and says, hey, here's a backdoor. You can see all of our users' iCloud information. Like, I do not see any world where that happens. And we're hearing that Apple may drop the UK for certain iCloud services because of this order. So maybe encrypted storage will not be a service anymore in the UK, or even some services within iCloud may be disabled. Now, I don't think iCloud as a whole is going to be gone from the UK, but I think that there are going to be some type of trade-offs here. Apple's going to have to do something and disable something over there to make them happy, whether that's removing, the encrypted backups or whatever. We don't know what it's going to be just yet, but this whole story is just absolutely insane. But, I wouldn't worry about it. If you're worried about it, I would not worry about it because I seriously do not think that that's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be any backdoor, anytime at all in the future. Now, we have some other important news to talk about as well, but I first want to talk about, just kind of go back to iOS 18.3 because I did run a fresh Geekbench score here, and we did score a solid 3531 on the single core, 8825 on the multi-core, which you can see pretty similar to our last few runs here on 18.3, which is pretty unsurprising. I mean, we've been on the same build here for a few weeks, so great performance overall, no issues still with 18.3, and it seems like you guys have had a lot of issues resolved with 18.3, which is a great sign. Now, as far as battery life goes, you'll have to let me know what I started this video with because I did not check that, but I'm at 77% right now. But yeah, so battery life has been fine for me. I mean, I've really had no issues. I have been using my main phone a bit more recently than normal, so I have had to charge it, sometimes more than once a day, which is not very usual. But so far, compared to 18.2 and 18.2.1, it's a little bit better for me on 18.3. But at this point, all eyes are on iOS 18.4 beta 1 and when we're going to see that beta get released. Because if you remember, last weekend I said, that we could wait until February 18th before we see 18.4 beta 1. So many people said, we're going to see it right after 18.3. Sure, that was a possibility. I put that out there, that was a possibility, but I was also one of the only ones to tell you guys that we might not be seeing 18.4 beta 1 until the week of February 17th, most likely on February 18th. And now here we are just about a week away from that date right there of the 18th. Now, we're now hearing that we're going to see the iPhone SE4 as early as next week. So that tells me that we might actually be seeing 18.4 beta 1 next week instead of the week of the 17th. Now, it still could come at any point during the next 2 weeks. Again, I would say that the 18th is the latest we'll see it. I'm still going to stick to that. Anyways, yes, we should see 18.4 beta 1 within the next 2 weeks. If not next week, then of course the following week. And then we should wait 2 weeks before the second beta. So we're probably not going to see the second beta until, either the last week of February or the first week of March. And then the final release of 18.4 will be at some point in April. If I had to guess, it would be in early April. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And let's pick up where we just left off with the iPhone iPhone SE 4 and another Apple product coming next week. So we heard this bombshell from Mark Gurman late this week because we all thought that the iPhone SE 4 was going to come at a March event. But we're now hearing from Gurman that it's actually planning to be released next week, as in, just tomorrow. If you're watching this video on Sunday, we could see an announcement or even a release, a pre-order of the iPhone SE 4, which is pretty awesome. And you can see that we have some of these last minute details right here. It is going to be very similar to the iPhone 14. It's going to have an iPhone 14 style design. You're going to have a notch. And we are planning to see Apple Intelligence on this iPhone SE 4 as well, which is going to make it a pretty good seller, I think, especially for an entry-level iPhone. But once again, the big question here is the pricing. Is it going to be $499 or is it going to be like $479 or $429? We don't know just yet. We are still hearing it's going to be under $500, but of course we won't know until it gets released by Apple. But that's not the only product that's coming next week, because we're also hearing that the Powerbeats Pro 2 are coming next week, and these are going to come in a variety of colors, including this nice orange here. I really like this orange color right here. So the Powerbeats Pro 2 are expected to be a solid upgrade over the first Powerbeats Pro. So you guys let me know in the comments down below. Are you interested in Powerbeats Pro at all? You're interested in the Beats brand at all? Please let me know in a comment down below. I do like how the Beats go around the ear. That makes them different from the AirPods, but I'm curious to know what you guys think about that. And then we might also even see a new MacBook Air and iPad Air next week. I feel like these are less likely, but we are hearing from Mark Gurman that the stock in Apple stores is running low for the iPad Air and the MacBook Air. So this could also be potentially something that we see released next week. I don't have near as much confidence in either one of these as I do the SE 4 and the Powerbeats Pro 2. I do think both of those are coming next week, but we don't know for sure on the MacBook Air and the iPad Air. That also makes me wonder about the March event for Apple, because we did also hear that we might be seeing an event in March, but is that just going to be for the Macs? Is it going to be just for the iPads? We don't exactly know just yet. I mean, I do think that the iPads would be in March. I would think that the iPad Air and the base model iPad would come out in March. But again, we don't know just yet. We'll have to wait and see what Apple has planned. And then speaking of upcoming products, including Macs, we're now hearing that the M5 chip is entering mass production. So we're going to start seeing these M5 chips come out relatively soon. So we don't know for sure if the MacBook Air is going to be M5 or M4. So it's probably going to be M4, but later this year, we should start to see M5 chips get introduced in these products, which would be insane. It may be first in the iPad Pro once again, because if you guys remember last year, the iPad Pro was the first model, the first Apple device to get the M4 chip. So we may see that repeat this year if Apple does update the iPad Pro, which they're expected to according to Mark Gurman. So that could be interesting and something to keep an eye on. Also, if you remember a while back, we talked about how a former iOS developer that worked for Apple was leaking information to journalists and leaking information online to the Wall Street Journal and to the Information. And he actually got sued by Apple for leaking this confidential information. But now the charges were dropped and this guy actually sent out an apology on X. So you can see what that post looks like here. He says, "I spent nearly 8 years as a software engineer at Apple," and you can read the apology there. It looks like Apple wrote it themselves and just told him to put it out there. But hey, that's pretty interesting, and that's kind of a resolution closure to a case that we talked about last year, if you remember that. And then finally, just as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a man in Australia took out a $100,000 Audi RS4 for a test drive, and the Audi dealership did have an AirTag inside of the Audi. That way they were able to track it in case something happened, and something did happen. So apparently this guy picked up the car on a Friday morning and he told the staff at the dealership that he would return it by 2 p.m. But when the dealership checked the location of the AirTag at around 1:30, they noticed that it was well outside of the designated test area. It was in a different town. And they tried calling the man to see if he's going to return the car, but he didn't answer. So the staff at the dealership called the Australian police to report the vehicle as stolen. So of course, since the dealership had his live location, they were able to tell the police where he was headed, and they did spot him on the highway over the South Australian and Victorian border. So he was across the border of where he's supposed to be, and of course police did arrest him. Now here's where it gets weird, because the driver, the one who stole this, test drive Audi RS4, he was in possession of an illegal drug named Kamini. And this is known as the Indian Viagra, and it's illegal in Australia. Anyways, the guy that stole the car, of course, had a lawyer, and he told the court that his client just simply lost track of his location and hadn't realized he was in Victoria until he got pulled over. He just got a bit carried away, Anyways, the man was arrested, and he did have to spend 3 days in jail. But once again, without the AirTag, they may have never seen this Audi RS4 again. Who knows? But that's crazy, and I'm glad that these dealerships put AirTags in their cars just in case. Anyways, guys, that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and this was on a Sunday. Don't worry, it's not a new schedule. I'm still sticking to Saturdays. It was just kind of hectic this weekend, so bear with me. I'll be back next Saturday with a new Apple Weekly episode, and hopefully we have 18.4 Beta 1 by then. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.